Thank you.
Welcome everyone to the first day of our 2021 professional development series. We're really fortunate to have a really great, powerful, short and efficient, I'm assuming it's efficient, right, Laurie,
Right.
presentation today about building a great culture and in the midst of COVID-19, which we're still in, everyone. So if you're not aware, my name is Kelly Williamson from the SUNY CPD Center for Professional Development. We're still located in Syracuse, but we have moved our offices. So if you're interested in coming to visit us, let us know. We have been holding this week for a couple of years now, and it's really a short, easily accessible awareness campaign to highlight, not only professional development, but personal development, technical development, those of you that are in academia specifically, as well as your leadership. So we try to bang off every facet of leadership in a short week. And then we will share these recordings with you so you can forward them to all of your colleagues, because we understand in today's climate, there's not a lot of opportunities, especially with the pandemic, the ongoing issues with getting people together. So I did want to give a plug, just a quick plug. If you also want to reach out to Laurie, she's part of Doodle, which successfully held their first hybrid event. So if you've been thinking about a hybrid event, bringing people together on person and virtually, please hit her up to see what she would recommend, because I think they have a lot of good debriefing points. You can go to the next slide, Laura. All right, so we did that already. So housekeeping, I muted all of you. Please put everything in the chat. By now, we're pretty much Zoom wizards. That was not the case a few years ago. So, we will make these available to you via YouTube. If you have registered, which hopefully all of you have individually registered, you will be receiving an email with the recording. But just email me at any time. If you scroll up to the chat, you'll see that I shared my email address as well as Laurie's. And I'll be monitoring the chat. So we're so happy to welcome Laurie. And this is really quick, guys. So if you have to leave, no problem. We'll send you the recording. Laurie and I got to meet in person for the first time last week. It was really exciting. It was just for about 5 minutes or so, but she's always been a real big cheerleader for the CPD and our programs. So really fortunate to have her participate today. She is SUNY Geneseo's Director of Educational Technology, which encompasses classroom technology, instructional support for using that technology, the favorite phrase, LMS, administration and support these days, and as well as overseeing campus technology training and the digital media services. So I will turn it over to Laurie, and I noticed that you can't see the emails I provided, so I will actually put those back in the chat for you. So take it away, Laurie. Welcome.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelly. I'm really not only flattered that Kelly invited me to talk on behalf of the CPD again, but I'm thrilled to be talking about a topic that I believe very strongly in, and that is that our role as leaders, or as people actually, is to be part of a great culture. Here's a little bit more information about me. I've been at Geneseo actually 26 years. I've had 2 primary roles. For the first 20 years, I was responsible for what you might know as user services or support services and the help desk. But currently I'm in the educational technology area, and aren't things getting exciting there as we start to get excited about implementing the SUNY digital learning environment. COVID has been a big change for my staff as we support both physical classrooms and online learning. Some of my interests include leadership development, so that's why I'm here. Productivity and time management is another area that I spend a lot of time in, and project management. One of my philosophies about professional development that I present or attend is that it benefits you personally and professionally. I hold the philosophy that I'm one person, so I try to think about these things. Although I gave up on trying to project manage my spouse, it's not really fair, but I do recommend it for teenagers, so we could talk about that some too. In my free time, I'm a church organist, and I'm currently a student in the MBA program in technology leadership at SUNY Poly. My leadership philosophy really revolves around building culture. It is something that I think is so important because I believe that employees who feel secure, appreciated, and listened to will work together well, will work harder, and will be happier people. And isn't that our goal? I don't want someone to leave work every day miserable. There is a book that I like. It was written by one of my favorite keynote speakers called The Dog Poop Principle. And it has poop in the title, which appeals to me, but it also talks about if you see dog poop, we all clean it up. As a leader, I don't step over it. I clean it up as well. So that's kind of the basis for what I'm going to be talking with you about today. I just have one easy participation chat for us to work on together, and that's at menti.com. I just would like to hear from you all, if you're willing to participate. What is your work culture like now? And this is anonymous, so I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute so I can switch my screen. So if you would please, you'll see it at the top now of my new share. If you go to menti.com, you can use that code. We're just going to take a couple minutes to share what is your culture like now.
Alexa's hot on the trail. She already had that number in the chat.
And this is honestly my first time using it. So I thought it would, doesn't it automatically start to show up, or maybe not?
Maybe try to refresh it.
Let me try.
No, or maybe no one's answered.
There it is.
Oh.
Collaborative.
Well, those are two.
Toxic. Oh, it's heartbreaking. I've seen some good words. We all have morale issues, don't we?
Definitely. And not even in your internal team, right? Campuses, you can feel that.
Campuses, I mean, as people, we had a great talk at Doodle last week about, I love Hallmark holiday movies. I long for that happy ending. You know, when I have a stressful day, especially, I like to go out there. Okay, so we're still clinging to collaborative, but we're starting to see some bigger things with some low morale. Okay, so let's see if we can move some things for how you're feeling. You can go ahead and keep sharing. And Kelly, I think I'll pop back at the end of the presentation if you help me remember to see how our word cloud is looking.
Thank you for the participation too. That doesn't always happen.
Okay. So what do we want, right? Let's think about what we're looking for. Is we have high expectations, right? When you go to work, you have really high expectations of what things are going to be like. We want positive and supportive colleagues, right? We want to work with great people. We want to have leaders as coaches, not dictators. And we want to have fun. That's something else that I think is very important. And you'll see that a lot as I talk about culture. Fun is not a dirty word at work. We absolutely can have fun at work. So here are our culture goals. In the department, we want to have a spirit of teamwork. These are the sorts of things that we're going to be working toward. Productive employees. Happy employees are more productive employees. And we want a successful completion of our projects and goals. I think culture is clearly about people. So let's talk about people. People want to feel like, so this is my own personal goal. I want to make useful contributions to the university. I want to have control over my working life. And we want respect. And here's the fun again. So please, I encourage you in the chat, if you think of things that I'm missing or other things that you would like to add. But we're building here a premise of what we're going to talk about this morning. And that is that culture is important for our organization and for people. In my productivity interests, I follow a blog written by the people that created Todoist. And Kelly, the day after you asked me to give this presentation, I saw this graphic and I thought it was great. And I'm going to describe it to you. This is two circles on the left, what companies think team culture is, and it's a big yellow, how you socialize together. But what team culture actually is, a bit of socializing, but a lot of working together. And I think that that is so important to remember, that your working relationships lead to a good culture. It doesn't have to be all about happy hour or coffee. COVID and the pandemic impacted three primary areas of our culture. The first one is communication. How do we communicate with each other? Most of us prior to March 2020 were used to walking next door, popping into your colleague's office and starting up a conversation. The second one is collaboration. And this is meetings, collaborating on documents. And the third is connection. Connection is one that's a little bit harder to do, but you want to have a good working relationship and a feeling of connection with each other. So I'm going to talk about each of those three areas and give you some quick ideas of how we can improve these parts of culture. So the first one is communication. And the first type of communication is those ad hoc chats that happen in the hallway. These type of chats, you want to prioritize one-way communication, especially leadership to individual. At the start of the pandemic, our CIO, as an example, contacted each employee in the department to see how they were doing. Reaching out with that personal touch means so much. And it was, somewhat simple for her to do. We also quickly identified in our department the mediums that we're using for communication. I mean, email is a pretty standard way, but we leveraged first Slack and now Microsoft Teams for communicating with each other. And we have a mix of groups that we communicate with, but it gives us a lot of opportunity to communicate one-on-one. We also really heavily use Zoom or Teams for video conversations. And I think it's important to make clear that some communication is optional. I'll tell you a little bit about how we did that in my group. I have 6 employees. And when we first went home in March of 2020, you may recall that we were going home for a few weeks to flatten the curve. But I wanted to keep in touch with my employees. So we started a morning check-in. We called it a check-in. It was optional, and we did it 5 days a week. And some mornings it was 45 minutes, especially in the beginning when we were making big changes to our classrooms, to how we supported faculty. We were talking for quite a while. But many mornings, that check-in is 10 minutes or even less. It's optional. My staff is not required to participate in the morning check-in. We also have kind of an inside joke about how that's a meeting you can be late for. If you're working on something else and you're late, you don't really miss much. We're having a chat. I am amazed at how this changed the culture of our group. First of all, many of us, myself included, spend a lot of our time on campus in meetings. So we really weren't spending a lot of time getting to know each other. And now we see each other as people, and we actually look forward to checking in with each other. After about 2 months, I thought, oh, this is too much. They have to be sick of me. I'm going to drop this down to every other day. And as soon as I changed that on our schedule, they all said, oh, no, we want to see everybody every day. We know most of our pets' names. We know children's, we've seen spouses, we've shared weekend plans. I feel more connected to my team than ever before. So to me, that's one way that the pandemic improved our team culture. That daily check-in, I've heard of organizations doing a daily stand-up, although that's never been my leadership style. That daily check-in also gave us an opportunity to be reactive to someone who was feeling overwhelmed about their workload. So we were able to say, I need some help in this space, or I've got 3 tickets that I need to work on. I really only have time for 2. Can anybody grab this other one? It has actually improved our ability to balance our workloads. Kelly mentioned the hybrid meeting or the blended meeting. Blended meetings are the norm now. I find that a lot of us at SUNY campuses that are residential campuses, we're used to, prior to the pandemic, meeting in person and everyone is here. And now as campuses are opening and some of us are on campus, and my staff range from 50% remote to 100% on campus, blended meetings are the norm. It's important when we have a blended meeting to make space for sharing by all attendees. At Doodle last week, we had someone whose primary responsibility was to be an advocate for the online participants to speak up when a chat question appears. It's also important to facilitate open decision-making. Not necessarily, everybody has to raise their hand like you're in a jury room, but you want to be sure to ask for input from people who are remote to be sure they're able to participate. We also try to spend time to celebrate accomplishments publicly at these meetings, and we are very adaptable, being prepared to change what we're doing. Blended meetings are going to be something that we all need to learn to facilitate. So I encourage you, whether you're a leader or a professor, to practice this. I know on my campus, all of our IT staff are willing to help you facilitate learning how to become a good leader of a blended meeting. So let's talk a little bit about collaboration. And I'm going to cover just a few different areas of ways to collaborate. The first one is project management and tasks. And I found this quote from Atlassian. Atlassian are the people that make both Jira and the Confluence Wiki. One of the things that we have to be careful of during this stressful time in our lives is to be careful of change fatigue. This is a new phrase for me, but I think you've all been feeling a lot of change fatigue. You're changing physically where your work location is. Maybe to some degree, you're changing your work responsibilities. We want to be sure that we are not making too many changes to our team structure, our processes, or where the team works. So project management and tasks, the way we're managing them is we use the wiki to keep track of some things, but we also try to hold some blended meetings, or more than likely online meetings. In a project team, I think it's really important that people have an equity of participation, and you really get the best equity when the whole group is either 100% together or 100% online. So the next idea I want to talk to you about is some asynchronous brainstorming. This is something that is not a new idea, but probably something we rarely used when we had the luxury of all being together. There was a study, a psychological official study on brainstorming face-to-face, in real time, and asynchronous. And one of the interesting things about the study for me is that the asynchronous method actually yielded more ideas than did the in-person group. And there was really a big advantage to brainstorming asynchronously. One of my colleagues uses this. I've done some presentations in the past on retrospectives after projects. One of my colleagues uses this method to brainstorm the success of a project. And one of the things that I like about it is it gives everyone an opportunity to think about what they would like to share rather than being called on the spot in a face-to-face brainstorming time. Brainwriting, which is the title of this, is taking that asynchronous brainstorming to another level. And you can see in the picture here that you can actually, there are some technologies you can use to draw, and to try some different things. But even if we are back together in person, we may use some asynchronous collaboration more often.
Lori, I put a question in there about the biggest change that folks have experienced. So I'll read anything back to you when we're.
Okay, great.
There you
go. The last piece, which is something that we've done in the past, but maybe not as heavily as we should, is collecting documents and materials together. Google Docs, we're a Google campus, so we have used Google Docs quite a bit. We're also moving more towards Microsoft Teams, and we use the Confluence Wiki. A lot of leadership changes at our sister colleges. I'm watching the chat here, Kelly. And I did hear that at Doodle this week when we talked about things. And leadership changes, that adds to change fatigue too.
Perfect.
So I want to talk some more about connection, because I think connection is the most important part of our working together and our team culture. Daily check-in. I talked about this a bit earlier, and the daily check-in, we still do it twice a week. We did it this morning. Like I said, I have 7 people on our team. 3 of us are here in my office suite today. I have one colleague who's in another building, and then 3 people were home. So it's just fantastic to get together in the morning. One of my colleagues has 2 new kittens. That is fun to watch. So we are still doing our daily check-ins. We have also done some optional team building events. And here's another opportunity for you to share some things that worked for you. Trivia and games. We, even now at our department all staff meetings, we play trivia, which, you know, I enjoy. And it's nice to have a little bit of fun to start. Kelly she shared with us that word search at the beginning. Those are a great way to do it too. We also did have some happy hours. And the way that my department handled happy hours is we had a different host every month. So we did the happy hours once a month. There was a different host, and it was really the host choice of what we would be doing. And sometimes people, we played a lot of Jackbox games. We also, some people created trivia about the department, and they gathered things ahead of time and would share an obscure fact, and then everyone would try to guess who was that person. We also eat lunch together virtually, not necessarily a lunch meeting or a lunch workshop, but just every once in a while we would say, hey, let's hop on Zoom and eat lunch together. Most of us were eating at our laptops at home. Same with coffee in the morning. I saw that there was a question about daily check-ins with larger staff. Darcy, 6 to 7 is reasonable. If you have a staff over 20, we break people into smaller groups. So with a staff of 20, there might be a few minutes in the at the beginning. You know, sometimes I have announcements to share or some things that we all need to talk about. But then for the coffee chat or hanging out together, I would break people into groups of 6 or 7. That can be kind of dangerous because we jokingly call breakout rooms ejection rooms. But I think that it's an opportunity to develop culture leaders among your department, to ask people to go into a room and get to know each other. I think the one-on-one connection during the pandemic is another important thing. I try to make sure that each of my employees are familiar with our college policies and the things that are available to them. I've always been fair about these things, but I feel like we have an even bigger responsibility to normalize taking a day off for illness, mental health, caring for family members, children who are home from school. I used time in my one-on-ones with my staff to talk about feelings of uncertainty and unproductivity. I'm not sure if unproductivity is a word or if I just made it up, but there you go. We all talk more about our feelings than we ever have before. And one of the things that I've been reflecting on is that there are certain aspects of culture that you can control. And I think it's all of our obligation to make sure that what we can control, we have a good culture, a safe place. So I have a few resources from some of my favorite bloggers, and I'll be sharing my slides. But Laura Hogan is a blogger who talks quite a bit about being a manager in terrible times. Some of her blogs, her things are kind of they're kind of dated, but not out of date. Atlassian also has been doing a lot of work to help organizations manage teams during remote times. So we have a few minutes left. I see Sharon added a question: how do you create a safe place when it doesn't feel safe? Sharon, I try to control what I can and let go of the rest. That's one of my mantras. So I think in that instance, I would think about what you can control. I know that you are a faculty member and you're a colleague in a department on campus, and of course you're a resident of the campus at large. So when I think about culture, one of the things that I think actually is important for faculty is to create that safe culture in your classes. That doesn't just benefit your students, it benefits you as well. Creating a great culture with my team as a leader benefits me as well as everybody else. I'm not just doing this for I am doing it for other people, but it also benefits me. I also feel like as you come out of your protective bubble of what you can control, you can consider how you react and interact with other people on campus. I try to be kind, even when people are stressed. I absolutely teach that to my children as well, who are young adults. They're 19 and 23. In all of our interactions, from the Dunkin' Donuts in our town that is understaffed and slow to cashiers that are checking us out with long shopping lines. I think it's important for all of us to be kind to other people. So culture is not just about, can I get the most out of my employees? That's not what this is about. What it's about is making sure that we all feel like we are appreciated for what we do at work. Yeah, I think that's it. I I love this cat with the macaroons. I don't know why I've been using it at the end of all of my presentations. I wish I was this cat. I love macaroons. I'm on Twitter if you would like to chat on Twitter. And I'm also happy to talk via email. Kelly, I am right at 11:30. Look at that.
No,
Um,
perfect.
yeah.
Be clapping. Yeah,
Um,
so we can hang out. It's up to you. I know we had said like we could go a little over if people have questions, if you want to go back to that mentee just to see where we ended up. My question,
yeah.
I had one question for you
Okay.
because, we have people hybrid, remote, etc. How do you feel about, well, you kind of already said this, but small casual meetings for everything? Like I think I'll explain what I mean by this. There's a stigma around meeting too much. But I
Mhm.
think at the same time, having small manageable meetings and not waiting until something is huge and there's like a long agenda.
Yes.
Have you had experience like feedback? And folks put feedback in the chat if you hang around, but I feel like we should have more meetings that are small and easy to manage because there's so many pieces. So just
I think,
curious.
I mean, I would like to think, and some of my staff are on the call. I don't know if anyone wants to talk, but I feel like having a shorter meeting a couple times a week is actually way more efficient for us. Microsoft Teams has made such a huge difference to be able to share information in between. I even feel like an email is very stiff and formal and official. And sometimes we send emails, but Teams has been fantastic. So one of the things that we've done in our own department is we have an expectation that people will use Teams to communicate with each other, and I'm hoping that continues. I think, Kelly, one other thing that could be really great is the work that the CPD is doing to bring Microsoft Teams to our campuses to collaborate together in in the new thing that you're doing, which now
Yeah, so workplace, if you use it, you probably are aware, you should be aware that we're going to be folding out of that relatively soon. Follow up with me after if you have questions about that, but we are looking to expand our space inside of Microsoft Teams, but not using Teams. So I can share with you more about that if you want. Just shoot me an email or message me on Workplace. But just that idea that we can continue that collaborative conversation, especially across campuses. So sort of how we're bringing people together and stitching this knowledge with individuals from all over the state and campuses. That's, we want to expand our communities inside of, a tool that we can all share. So we're working on that. I love that folks are still filling it out, but we will be sharing this recording. If anybody has any other questions, I know the chat's still going on. We had a lot of long-term employees, so it was great to see that mix, and we'll have the chat transcript. But it's all been a learning process.
I think one thing that you can do on your own campuses is there are some things that that I would, when I look at this list, I feel like they're out of my control. Like I worry about toxic. That clearly, that's a big word, and I worry about how many of you are in a toxic environment. But I look at that word isolated, which is just to the upper right of collaborated. And I think that there are things that you can do, even if you're not a leader, to help with the isolation. For example, you could find a group of people that are similar and say, hey, let's play online games tonight, or let's have coffee together, or can we eat lunch together? I miss when I walk down the hallway seeing faculty, but every time I meet with someone or talk with someone on the phone, I try to, more than ever, add that little bit of really genuinely asking, how are they doing? What have you been up to? So I think that in some of these words, you can look at how can I make a change? I mean, I think culture is everyone's responsibility. And I encourage you to talk with your leaders about it too. We talk about it in our leadership meetings frequently to try to make sure that we are that we have a good culture in our department.
Mhm.
I see Bradley asked the question about including students. Microsoft Teams extends to students. So we have our students in our Teams instance. Are they in all of our groups? No, but they are included there. Supervising students now, I've supervised students on campus for 25 years. This last 18 months has been the hardest for supervising students, especially when students are on campus and I'm working off campus. That has really been a struggle and something that I'm trying to figure out how to make a little bit better. I think that students are used to participating in a Teams environment, so that might work. Our help desk has started checking in when they get to work. So they might say, hi, I'm here till 10. And some of us reach out and say, hey, welcome. One of our students was late recently because he had a mouse loose in his apartment. And we all kind of chimed in and talked about, one of us uses peanut butter, one uses marshmallows. So that's been, just allowing yourself to have the time to continue to make connections with people, even if you're just talking.
Focus on the
via chat.
humanity.
Yep. Yep.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. We'll see. Oh, someone had a question. Yes, the link that you received for today's programming is the link for the rest of the week. So you can share that out. If you are sharing it to someone that hasn't registered, we'd love to have them register so that we could actually just make sure to follow up with them, especially with the slides and all the information. And the times do change. So even though it's the same link, they're at different times. Some are longer, some are shorter. This was about in this like 40 minutes. We're going to call it at that. But there are some that are an hour. So take a look. But again, if you miss it or you have to beep out and want to come back and just check out the recordings, we'll be sharing those. So any last words, Laurie, before I stop the recording?
No, I do want to say thank you to you, Kelly, for organizing this great week. I'm really looking forward to the other presentations, and I'm always proud to work with the
I'm
CPDs.
glad. So on Wednesday, so it's a good tee up for me on Wednesday. Now that we have great programming at Beth Berlin tomorrow, and myself on Wednesday, puffing myself up, and then inclusion on Thursday, and then Friday presentation best practices, right? Especially since we're in and out of the office, we want to be creative and efficient with those. But on Wednesday, the second half hour is actually a chair yoga session. So if we're feeling like we need to let loose, definitely let everyone know about that. And that'll be part of the recording too. But we've worked with Eileen before on some other programming, and it's really great. And she's really accommodating. So I'm glad we could have this. Rob just said a great start to the week. I'm glad we could sort of tee off your week. The links are in there in the chat, and just follow up with either one of us. And again, Laurie, thank you so much. Your bright spirit on this Monday. Some of us might be getting snow. But thanks for joining us. I'm gonna stop the recording and I'll hang out if there's any last bits.